My name's Simon Suter. I work for a company called ReachLocal, and ReachLocal, we look after approximately 50,000 SMEs globally. What we try to do is we try to simplify a lot of the change that is occurring through, obviously, the digital process. And whilst we all in this room might be up to speed or savvy with a lot of stuff that's happening, it's changing at a very, very fast pace. And a lot of our clients are struggling to actually understand what that means to them. Because we all know 20 years ago, it was a lot simpler than what it is today. And as we've seen in the last two presentations, that's all I've seen, I've just flown in, everything I've seen is correct, but there's a lot of it. There are 20.1 million internet users. It's growing daily. Where are they using? Where are they going? Well, social networks, researching, personal emails, multimedia, shopping, games. Consumers over 35 years of age spend more time on the internet than in the offline market. And that's increasing, and it's increasing. And it's funny to think, my 16-year-old daughter actually doesn't use Facebook anymore. We do a lot of work with Facebook, we do a lot of work with Google. And I was talking to Facebook and I told them that, and they said, yeah, that's why we bought Instagram, because that's what she uses. They're just keeping up to speed, and it's quicker and it's easier because they don't want to have to go through processes. They want to have it now, do it now, and make it easy. So we all know in this room that the digital space is growing, and it's growing at a huge rate of knots. But what does that mean to businesses out there that might not be as tech savvy? And our challenge is to represent them and to make it as simple as possible, as I've said. So we all sit here and we all know what we do and how we do it, but we all use our mobile phone to find a restaurant. I travel a fair bit. I jump into a city. I want to go and get something to eat. Where do I go? I go straight to my phone and I Google a restaurant. I try a business due to a friend's post. Of course I do, because I'm on Facebook and I'm getting likes and I'm getting recommendations, and I'm also getting places not to go. We check in at businesses on Facebook. We buy daily deals. Who remembers the deal boom? You know, us as a company actually invested a lot of money in a deal company in the United States. Right? It was a big mistake on our part because we missed the boom, and now it's obviously consolidated. But it's still another option for SMEs to understand whether or not they want to be part of it and want to explore that area. So my presentation isn't as pretty as the one before. I'm a boy, so it is a little bit more detailed. But hopefully, we'll just have a moment to look at this from Google.
Moment of truth and experience. People take the product home and experience it. They could have a good experience or a bad experience, and they share it. This is the second moment of truth. If marketers spend time on these three steps, they should succeed, right? We investigated this theory. We conducted a comprehensive study with research partner Shopper Sciences using 5,000 shoppers across 12 categories, from groceries to cars and financial products. The goal, show where influence takes place as shoppers move from undecided to decided. We found that the average shopper used 10.4 sources of information, up from 5.3 sources in 2010. We asked shoppers what sources they used to make decisions, when they used it, and how influential is each source. When we lined up their responses, a fourth step appeared in the marketing mental model, the zero moment of truth. This is when consumers do their research, get smart about alternatives, read reviews, look for coupons and comparison shop, all before going to the shelf. When we compare the steps, the zero moment of truth pops up as highly relevant and influential. Consumers have changed the way they have approached decision-making. As a marketer, have you kept up, or are you still using the old mental model? There's a new mental model now, and marketers that can now keep all these steps spinning gain a very competitive advantage in today's marketplace.
So what Google is saying in essence is there's a lot more steps to the buying process and ultimately the selling process. What used to be quite simple in the past, what we call the linear process, which is you have your awareness, consideration, and then you have your purchase, you review and repeat it. Today, that funnel, we believe, we know, is what the previous presenters have said, quite complex. There's offline advertising, there's your traditional advertising that's still there. There's your radio, there's your newspapers, and they still play a part. There's your online advertising, there's your content sites. There's your search directories, Google, Yahoo, Bing, or more Google Bing now. There's your blogs, there's your deals, there's your social media check-ins, etc., etc., etc. So how does a small business cope with all of this that's in front of them? Because big companies can afford to have a marketing team that can specialize in these areas. But you're talking to a 3 to 4 person business, they don't have those resources. So think about something that you've brought recently and consider how many factors were involved in that buying decision. And if we look at this, we'll go through a little bit of a journey. So we'll call this Mrs. Jones. She needs a plumber. She's heard some ads on radio. She's seen some billboards, some trucks. She sees display ads on local sites. She goes for a search for a plumber. She sees some paid search. She sees some organic SEO. She checks them. She visits 2 of their sites. She calls to book. The plumber arrives 2 hours late. She jumps onto Facebook. She then leaves some reviews that might or might not be very good. Where do the businesses place themselves in the buying cycle? To plan the right marketing strategy, you need to know what path your consumers are taking, or at least have an idea of how they're going to get to your product in the end of the day. So are you a low cost? Shorter buying journey is the low cost, like your plumber. You've got a dripping tap, you want somebody in. However, if you want a luxury item, it's going to be a more complex journey. So you're going to have more elements to cover so you can actually get to the end of the road. And they're influenced by so many different points, whether it be brand advertising, search, natural, organically or paid, whether it's going to be social presence, deals, whether it's going to be content referred to by friends through social media. And as we know from the previous slide, social media is the largest consumption of online media, even though we're a company that specialises in PPC, and it hurts me to say that, it is happening in one form or another. So if we look at this scenario, there's a couple of options here. She needs a plumber. She Googles Sydney plumber. She looks at the pictures. She visits the plumber's website. She calls one plumber. The plumber deals with it. She posts the updates. She then writes reviews on Google+. Well, on the second occasion, she's on Facebook and she complains that her tap's dripping all night and she can't sleep. She needs a plumber. She receives a recommendation from a friend. She then Googles that plumber by name. So organically, they automatically appear. She calls the plumber comes out, and she gets back on Facebook and says, what a great experience I've had. Do you think the plumber knows how to actually do that on Facebook? Probably not. And that's the challenge that they're having. The plumbers of tomorrow will be. My son teaches me more about the online world than I ever learnt at school. And it was interesting to see the education panel here when I arrived. At least they're getting the grounding in it. But there's a void at the moment in the marketplace of people who have been in business for 20, 30 years that don't know how to address the issues that are changing in front of them. Another scenario. Mrs. Jones wants some pampering. So the husband's got a promotion, the kids have done well at school, and she wants to go and spend some money. She browses websites, she gets information, she clicks through, she searches the spa by name, she's satisfied, so she calls for the appointment, she visits the spa, and she's happy. Or she sees a great daily deal shared by her friend on Facebook. She's seen print ads for that spa beforehand, so she buys that deal, off she goes, she likes it, and it just keeps on mutating and going on and on and on. And that spa is doing a good job, and I agree with the previous speaker, it is business to people, because it's about that personal relationship. The high-cost need. It's going to take a lot longer, which means it's going to be a lot more detailed, and we've got to be able to get a lot more touch points through to the individuals. So if we're deciding to buy a new car, there will be some choice at the early stages. I like that car, I like this one, I like that one. However, you're going to be influenced by TV, you're going to be influenced by radio, you're going to be influenced by digital. You're going to research these cars, you're going to see which is the best for your situation. You're going to look at the review sites to see what other people think about your choice. You're going to go on and have a look at different styles of ads. You're going to research offers. You're going to be surfing on the internet, and all of a sudden a couple of car dealers who are running remarketing campaigns are going to be digitally stalking you. So you're going to see their ads appearing again and again and again. You're going to get to a point where you're ready to visit. So you're going to look at a dealership, you're going to go online and check the reviews. Are these dealers reputable? And finally, you're going to purchase a car, which you're going to tell everybody about through every outlet on social media, and you're going to write reviews about your experience. So for a car dealer, the touch points is a lot greater than, say, for the plumber. But in essence, it's still the same. We look at the situation where you look at remodeling a kitchen. They might take up to a year before that decision to buy has occurred. You're going to get ideas, you're going to be looking at magazines, you're going to be looking at websites to see what kind of styles you like, you're going to be looking at friends' kitchens, you're going to be basing a formula on what you want to end up with. You're going to be asked for recommendations once you do have a style. You're going to be checking the web for examples and pictures and new styles and new gadgets and gizmos. Finally, you're going to call a couple of vendors. You're going to want to check their reputation. You want to check their material. You want to see what products and supplies they use. You're going to choose a remodeler. You're going to rate him online. You're going to tell everyone about it. So the cycle continues again and again and again. And for us as a business, taking these businesses through this is quite hard and challenging. Because I guarantee you today, whatever we learn today, that sometime in the next 30 days, something new will be out there. And we all know there's probably two guys sitting in a garage somewhere inventing the next big thing that will change it all over again and again and again. So what we're saying and all we're doing is probably just reiterating what everyone else is saying. To have a digital presence is adapt or die. You have to be there. And we have to keep rolling with it. And the challenge, I think, for a lot of us in the industry and for those of us in business is that how do we manage the period of time until the next generation are totally digitally savvy? Because at every point there's been communication, there's been touch points as to how, where, why and what. And it's a complex world we live in. We go out to the marketplace and we try to educate our clients really simply. And we say to them, if you're not doing anything at the moment, let's do one or two things. And then we can improve on that, 3 or 4 things. And the journey of our clients seems to be that once they get 1 or 2 things down pat, then they want to do the 3rd and 4th thing because they get excited within what's happening. And then they see the measurability of the product. And the wonderful thing about digital, as we all know, it is measurable. We're in past, you could run ads on radio station and you really didn't know, you had a gut feeling maybe, but you can measure it. So we believe it's a complex world. I think this is a great idea. I've just done one similar in Canberra. I think Australia is at the forefront of adapting and growing into the digital age. You know, we at ReachLocal are out there trying to do our best to bring people from the traditional into the digital. A lot of you in this room obviously are doing the same thing, and a lot of people who are in business are wondering how they can do it better. There's $1 million question. I wish I had the answer. But thank you very much.